Okay. Call this meeting to order at 11:30. We have invocation and pledges.
We do. Before we get there, I just want to say Happy New Year to everyone, our guests and our board, and just make a comment. January is School Board Appreciation Month. We normally don't do that here, but I just want to be able to say at a regular meeting, we will celebrate that, but happy School Board Appreciation Month, and we look forward to celebrating that and acknowledging that with each of you. Roger Campos will lead us in our invocation, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance to start off our January 3rd work session.
Thank you. Lord, we come to you in this brand new year with a desire to move forward, not backward. On this day, we ask you to grant this request. May we be a catalyst for light and love and bring inspiration to those we encounter. As we enter into this new year with excitement and even some anxiety, we recall your deep compassion, presence, and abounding love. We thank you for the gifts, talents, and skills which you have blessed us with. In your name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. One state under God, one indivisible.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Roger.
Yes, sir.
You know, for the story, I'd forgotten January was Board Appreciation Month, and one year, you know, when I was on TASB, the TASB president, you know, sends out cards to every district, 1,000 plus. Well, the year I was president, there was a printer's glitch, and I literally had to sign every card because we had the cards, we'd send them to a printer, you know, electronic signature. And it was like only the third year maybe that we had started electronic signing because, you know, it hadn't really happened before that. So I literally went up to Austin, spent 2 days signing 1,000 plus cards. You talk about a tired thumb. But yes, happy Board Appreciation to my board, my colleagues. I thank you. I know we've had tough times, but we've had more good times, I always like to say, than tough times. With that said, do we have any public comments other than mine?
I just want to know if your name got shorter as you went on.
Yeah. If anybody knows my signature, and I know Mona knows my signature, and I've been double checked, if you want to see my DL, it's very short looking. I mean, you can tell the S and you can tell the V and sometimes the J in junior. But it's very quick, but as easy as it seems, you know, you do when you get to 200, you're just, wow, I'm not even halfway yet. But yeah. Do we have anyone to sign up to speak, Omero? No, okay. That said, consider approval of becoming a sub-recipient for the ARPA mental health grant.
Yes,
Who
so we
has
have Ms. Varshness, who's been learning point, working with our county, for those ARPA funds. I think this is her line.
I didn't know who was starting the grad.
Lunch.
Oh, good point. I didn't-
Good point.
Would y'all like to get your lunch and come back in?
Yeah,
Okay, so be
let's-
set up by that time?
See? Vamos. Short recess. We're gonna go, come back from recess, continue eating, except for one.
Ms. Frances Larson is, and as I said, she is running point on the ARPA with the county, and part of receiving these funds is taking it toward the board action, and so I'll turn it over to Ms. Larson and she'll do our background, and then we'll ask the board to take an action item.
Good afternoon, everybody. So we have the great honor to be a sub-recipient for an ARPA, which is kind of like your COVID grant, your federal grants for mental health in partnership with Bexar County. Basically, Bear County has applied for the funds. They are the recipients of these funds. We would be a sub-recipient. Many other school districts, including San Antonio, South End, are looking to apply for these funds. We probably would be the second group that would be approved, second district approved for these funds. And so the intent of this is to specifically address mental health needs in the Southwest community and our community here. What we have found out through COVID and post-pandemic is that mental health is on an uptick, and you'll hear it everywhere. But in addition to that, for our area, mental health services and organizations are on the other side of town. And so this would provide opportunities on our southwest corner to have those mental health facilities and partnerships come down here to work with our students and the parents and families of our district. The process basically began with the steering committee to identify what mental health needs we have in our community based on what social workers, counselors, and other partner agencies have seen, including United Way and other avenues that we've had. The committee reviewed the different types of services that they needed based on our geographical area and services that are already provided by other organizations that we went and pulled data from. And our plan is to address the mental health needs by first having mental health services provided here during the school days, during after hours, and on Saturdays for some. And then in addition to that, providing training for our staff, our students, so that they are aware of what mental health needs look like, and so that we can address mental health needs here. We will do this through what's called the Southwest Care Center. And so we would build a center where people could come and get those services here within our facilities. The funding will be the district will receive 1,314,423 over the next 4 years. Southwest would be a subrecipient, and our grant ends December 31st, 2026. The board has already approved an RFP for mental health. We were doing that in preparation for this. So we do have vendors that are already approved that can come in as soon as this is approved through the commissioner's court to provide services next day and have an area and location to provide those services. All we're asking is for the board to approve this so it can go through the next system, which is going through the Bear County grant system, commissioner's court to get approved. And then to give us permission to make any negotiations without having to come to the board every time we need to negotiate. On the back side of your packet that you received, you will have our breakdown of our 4-year planning budget. We don't post that because it is RFP protected. So we have vendors that apply for RFP and their pricing is protected. So we don't put that out, but just to give you a breakdown, we would actually have different types of counselors that can do brief work, that can help with any type of recovery, any type of bereavement. We have people that just do mental health for behavioral, anything that they need, we would be able to provide a counselor to come here and work with our students and our families here in Southwest.
I have a question. Are we looking at multiple sites or just one site?
Right now, we are working on one site. Our hope is to have multiple sites, and we call them satellite Southwest centers. So right now, we have enough money to build 4 rooms and have 4 different types of vendors. We are currently in the process of getting our social workers trained, because to do therapy, you actually have to have an additional training and certification on top of it. And once we have them all certified, then we could do satellite centers everywhere that we have it. We're looking right now, we have portables available to us that we can actually build these centers. But we would like to see in the future to build something on the other side of 410 and have access points in all our corners.
So that's my concern, that we're very large, right? And we seem to have like 4 different areas. Anywhere that you put it, it puts undue duress on the opposite side of our district, right? So are we gonna have conversations about those locations?
Yes, soon as we're gonna have the first one set up. One of the ones that we have going up right now, vaping is a big issue. And we end up having a lot of DAP placements for it. So having one right next to them where Rising Recovery can come up and help work with students and train parents on how to get their kids off of vaping seems very relevant and will help us in the long run with students.
Or DAP.
Correct. It's on the portable right next to it. So that way kids can go and do
Take
their
their
sessions, yes. And then we can actually use that to help mitigate their time because those times can count as actual calendar days. So we're looking at a big plan for everything. Right now, we're just asking permission to be a subrecipient and then we will finalize the plan with them and we can bring that back and have you guys do a walkthrough of our facility.
Right, and but you did say that you wanted us to approve and also give you some latitude.
For negotiations. So basically what happens is
Negotiation for what, like dollars?
whenever you do a grant, so they'll say something like. You can spend $65,000 on this salary. But they'll come back and say, no, you can't only spend 60. Well, we don't want to have to come to the board every time we negotiate something. We're not changing the intent.
Right.
Everything's set. So if we just have to move price points
Yeah.
or how much we put into training. So we put originally $20,000 to train the whole staff.
Yes,
But through Daisy Nieto, who is also running this program, she found 3 services that qualify as state services
Yeah.
to come in and train everybody.
okay,
So then we didn't need to use the 20,000. So instead of coming here and saying that we're moving that, we would be able to negotiate that out ourselves.
I would just say that I would like for us to be part of the conversation when we're getting those, deciding where the sites are going. If that's-
Yeah, we had the same conversation about how important it is to be accessible in every quadrant. of the district.
Yes,
Maybe not every day, but
Uh-huh.
the center will be here one day, to be over here another day. So that's what we're gonna work towards and bring that to you. Let me give you a little background. These are ESSER funds that went to the city and county. And I believe their intent originally was to try to take these funds that are ear tagged for mental and well-being and do something on themselves, reporting back to the federal government. There's so much minutia involved that I think they found out we already have a structure, it's called school systems. So let's distribute the money to our school systems and that way they're meeting their time quadrant. And we're able to use these funds more effectively within our community and provide the minutia they need to report back to face.
accountability piece.
Yeah,
Is the money, I know that students are first priority, but is it can an adult access it?
So the only adults that can access this grant
Mhm.
would be the families and parents of these students,
Of the children that are.
of the children. We have a different plan for our staff.
Okay.
Mhm.
And there's nothing for the community at large.
The community at large, not on this grant, no.
Okay, all right, thank you.
That was on our original one, but the way that they wrote their grant does not allow for that.
Well, like 1.3 million can go quickly, right?
It does.
You have to kind of figure out who's your priority.
Are we gonna look at the data to make sure that we're effectively using it in places where it's needed, where there's more vaping or there's more mental issues?
We actually did. That's part of the committee that came up with this plan and structure. So we went through different groups of what we get from social worker, what our needs are from parents. We actually went through United Way and pulled their records of like the bereavement center was used. A lot of people had people pass during COVID. So we took a look at all of the different organizations that run data and they bring us back data for what was used in from Southwest students. And we used that to direct how we were going to spend our time and our full-time employees.
Is there any way to look at that like in another brown bag to see where where the data's at for that?
I'll be happy to showcase what the committee looked at and reviewed
Thank you.
vaping is kind of off the rails right now everywhere. I
everywhere.
know that we did last year, we did 2 to the community meeting, brought in experts. Not as well as you would want, so we're gonna have to find a way to get these opportunities into the family. It's gonna be one of the ways, but it won't be the only way. We're still gonna be addressing the whole vaping issue. I think everyone's trying to come up with a strategy. What do we do here to try to mitigate some of this vaping?
Well, Lloyd, and probably I would think the reason we didn't have as well attendance is most parents, they think that their child would never vape. I mean, they're like, oh, I don't need to do that, my child wouldn't do that, and we know the reality, right? So we have to reach them a different way.
And we're also looking at not making it so punitive because if you have addiction, 10 days is not going to help you somewhere else. but maybe learning more about vaping and how it could be a gateway.
Knowledge is power.
So you need a move, I move.
Okay, we do need a,
I second.
hold on. We do have a motion for the becoming a subrecipient for the ARPA mental health grant in partnership with Bear County for 2022 through 2026. And that motion was for that, and that second was for that flow. Any other questions? Hearing none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion passes. Okay. Items of information. We'll start with Samco.
Yes, sir. Today I got with me, Mark and Andrew from Samco. Like, as we started our journey, a while back, I know at one of the brown bags I took you on a tour of the district. Kind of give you an insight of all the data we've been getting, especially from the demographer, just looking at what the future looks like for us. So the first step is if you're looking at possibly going out for a bond to help mitigate some of the things we might be seeing short-term and long-term, is you reach out to your financial advisors and find out if we go out for bond, how much can we go out for? And what does that look like for us? Because at the end of the day, we're going to be borrowing money against our tax rate. And we need to make sure we can afford to do what we need to do and be strategic. So today I asked Mark and Andrew just kind of give you a high level of what we're seeing on the financial side. There's a lot of variables and factors that can play into this. And so not only with the market and with our property values, but as we start building out our projects over this next bond, when we actually need those projects, we won't be borrowing all the money right up front because we can't. First of all, we don't have the manpower, or probably in the world of construction, do all these projects. So we'd have to plan this, time it out, get back with them, and then go out for bonds and sell these bonds once we get the bonds approved. So I'm gonna turn over to Andrew, and he's gonna walk you through kind of like the financial side. I know there's a sheet on your desk there that looks like this. And if you would take a look at that and kind of walk you through the high level stuff. And kind of go over it.
And I'm
Yes.
sorry, I may have missed it. What is the timetable that you would say that you would want to vote for this?
Well, so I plan on going to tomorrow night. We're having a group planning. Kind of like getting in the weeds of the project, showing them the projects. At some point here in a week or two, go back to them again and have them bring a recommendation to the school board in January to have a May election, if possible.
So the decision needs to be made this month.
Correct, yes, ma'am. If we go out in May. If it's not May, if it's gonna be November, then we'll have more time. So there's a lot of variables we can get into that discussion.
I was not aware there was a broken time for this one.
Yes.
Okay, so we'll talk about that.
Good morning or good afternoon, everybody. Andrew Friedman, Samco Capital Markets. I'll apologize in advance for how small these numbers are on this page, but this is what we refer to as a tax rate impact analysis. So as Brandon mentioned, there's a lot of different variables at play when you talk about conducting a bond election. First and foremost is what are your needs? What do you need to construct? And that's really what drives one facet of this analysis is how much money do you need to borrow? And then we get into all of the other components, what interest rates we might be looking to borrow at over the next many years, and what type of growth are we expecting to see. So this analysis takes into account a number of these things. So I'll walk through this with you. Starting from the left column, you can see the fiscal years going from 2023 all the way out to 2058. And then you can see TAV, that stands for taxable assessed valuation. So that's the overall value of the district. The bolded number at the top at $5.7 billion is your certified value as of this past July. And then we assume a level of growth in each of the following years. We don't know what that growth is exactly, but we're trying to put a conservative estimate to it so that we've got numbers on paper, and we're growing this, assuming a 5% rate of growth over the next 5 years and then 2% annually through 2058. We have experienced more growth than that, certainly over the last decade. So we think this is a conservative estimate to that growth. If we hit a recession this year or next year and we don't get any growth, that affects how we can borrow and what that impact might be. And so this is really just our best efforts to try to be conservative. To the extent we get, let's say, 10% growth this year, that's helps to we can strategize how the bonds need to be borrowed to better coincide with the projects. There's a lot of moving pieces that will become more clear over time. And that's kind of foundational to what we're looking at here. But you can see we take into consideration the existing debt service. That's the annual principal and interest for all the bonds that are already outstanding. You can see the 2023 cash defeasance. Now, that's a board action that you all took prior to setting your tax rate this past August, where we're going to call some bonds early and then we'll pay those off probably in March or April, just here in the next few months. And you can see the less reduction in debt service payments because we're paying those bonds off early this year. That actually creates some capacity for this bond election over the next 20 years or so for the bonds that we're taking out of the market. And then we move into really the middle of the page, which is the bond election itself. We were tasked with, and we looked at a number of different scenarios with Dr. Verstiff and Mr. Crisp. This is reflective of $250 million in projects. Again, we'd be seeking that $250 million in authorization from the voters at one time, whether that's May of 2023 or November of 2023, potentially. But we wouldn't actually borrow all of that money this year. And so what this looks like, and these numbers will most certainly change between now and when all of the borrowings are actually conducted, but this assumes $50 million borrowed as soon as this summer. And that would be presumably for planning and design and engineering and architecture and kind of a lot of soft costs related to all these projects. And then borrowing $85 million in 2024, $50 million in 2025, $40 million in 2026, and $25 million in 2028. The things that will deviate from this issuance plan, whether it's moving bond sales up sooner, pushing them back further, how much we borrow in any given one of those years is going to be based upon what the project construction timing needs are, which are as yet unknown, what taxable assessed value growth we've gotten. Again, if we don't get as much growth as we were hoping for, we may have to delay a project a year in order to maintain the quote unquote tax rate promise, the target that we're ultimately shooting for, which we'll get into on the far right side of the page. And to the extent we get growth faster, you might be able to take on projects sooner and fund and complete these prior to 2028 when we're looking at that last issuance. And then really kind of the final product here, the $250 million ultimately borrowed within the premise that we're not going to increase the INS tax rate more than 1 penny from where it is now. So going to 43.8 cents. We go all the way back to 2012 when we conducted our second to last bond election. That tax rate that we went to the voters with was that we would issue all of those bonds, conduct and construct the new high school, et cetera, without breaking 44 cents of INS. So this is really kind of getting back to that promise. It was, I think, the same that was made in 2018 or 19 when we last went to the voters. So that's the impact of this $250 million based on these conservative growth assumptions. Assuming a 6% interest rate on these bonds, the current interest rate market is well below that. But again, we don't know what interest rates are going to do. We've certainly seen them go up a lot over the last year, over all of 2022, but they're not 6%, but we want to leave room in case interest rates do continue to climb. So to the extent interest rates come in better, again, that's to the benefit of the district. Going back to 2012, because we estimated growth lower than what we did receive, because we estimated the interest rate to be higher than what we ultimately received, we were able to issue all of those bonds without going up to the tax rate promise and target that you all had set as a board. So we would hope to be in a similar position, but certainly one where we're not going to exceed that 43.8 cents unless you all, determine otherwise.
Andrew, why is there, I noticed that we're doing a bond issue 23 to 28, but there's nothing for 27.
This is really just putting something on paper. One of the things that we look at is how we can issue the ultimately $250 million in bonds without going over that tax rate promise. And that's where we run into, can we afford to do one in 27, or do we need to wait a year? And that's really just to structure to make sure we maintain that tax rate.
So it's just giving you a little bit of wiggle room in case, but if we're okay, then we can still issue.
Exactly. And it may be that, we projected $85 million in 2024. If y'all were to get 10% or 12% growth, and there was a need construction wise and logistically that you needed to borrow $100 million, you may well be in that position to do so and stay within that tax rate. So that's where I say all of these numbers and the timing will undoubtedly change some over the next 10 years or so, or 5 years. As we work through this process, obviously you all will be a part of that decision-making process, because once we have authorization from the voters, you all as a board, the district is in a position to go out and sell bonds. You all as a board have to approve the sale of those bonds each and every time. So we'd be back in front of you each and every time it come, whether it's annually or biannually, to issue those bonds for you all to be in a position to know exactly what that impact's going to be.
And these numbers are directly tied to the prioritization of what we want to do when. Are these amounts tied into that, or are they?
Not necessarily, so that's why there's gonna have to be like us really working together. Really, when we get into our projects and finalize our projects, so example, on the projects, I have 2 elementaries.
Yeah.
So right now, I can tell you, we need an elementary pre-ASAP,
Right.
but I'm not sure on the second.
Right.
So I don't know in 2028, if we actually need the new elementary. We wouldn't sell the bonds and build a new elementary to have one, just, we would really need it. So really, it's gonna be studying the
You're gonna
demographics.
tie the
Yeah.
amounts to the projects that
Correct.
we need in that specific year.
Correct.
So this amount is just kind of like.
Yeah, this is a preliminary, because we have a lot of other things on
Yeah.
our side, construction side, and working through our demographer and looking at our projects. How do we space out the renovation projects?
Sure.
And then our new construction, when do we need the first elementary, when do we need the second one? So you can see around 2028, that would probably be where our second elementary would come into play, depending on, we see the growth, but then if a recession and the housing market plummets and it doesn't happen. Yeah, and so they hold on to it, not sell those bonds until we actually need them.
And how much time do we have to sell our bonds? Is it
It-
indefinite once the?
It's not indefinite. It's a little bit of a gray area. The Attorney General is the one who ultimately determines whether or not your authorization has gone stale. As part of kind of the bond election process, if we've been out there, you all as a board, and the plan shows that we're issuing bonds potentially through 2028 or 2030, it'd be deemed permissible that our authorization that was the plan that was communicated, from inception when that bond election was called. And then pivoting back to your original question, the bond election could be called at twice a year for a May or November. The window to call the May 2023 election is now through February 17th. So in order to have this on the ballot for May, you as a board would have to adopt a bond election order at one of your meetings prior to that February 17th date. Prior to that, y'all have a list of projects. This $250 million would not necessarily come under a single proposition before the voters. There's lots of state law and legislative efforts that have been implemented over the years where athletic facilities, for instance, have to fall under a separate proposition. School buildings and academic facilities could all be under a single proposition. We're not sure exactly yet because we don't have the final list of projects, and bond counsel would need to review them and make sure that they fit, within the letter of the law of how they can be taken to the voters. So it could be 2, 3, or potentially 4 propositions. It just depends on how much those projects are. And then if one proposition passes and one fails, and let's say it's for, athletic facilities or whatever it might be, you can still proceed with everything that's been approved by the voters, with the exception of, any proposition that fails.
I have one question. Does refunding sales affect any of this, or does this affect the possibility of any refunding sales?
It does not. They're separate apart from one another. We always want to consider any refundings that we may have, and certainly we do have a refunding that's out there if market conditions will permit. And it's really going to, in this case, a bond refunding is always or generally for savings, where we can save on those annual payments. Relative to a new bond issue, it's going to help us with that capacity. It'll help us You know, if we need to move some dollars around because a project is needed sooner rather than later, we would expect to use that refunding to help, you know, kind of holistically meet the goals of the district while still saving money. Certainly, but bond refundings are taken separate and apart from that, doesn't affect the authorization or when we would be going to market.
And the penny or penny and a half.
Yeah, those are going to be, the refundings will be driven by just the interest rate environment.
Okay.
And certainly something we've been keeping a keen eye on.
Could there be breaks somewhere else besides 2027? Would you be able to put a break between, like, say, if it's 23 and 24? or something,
Absolutely.
To where, like, you know, that the market's gonna be like better for us, or is that what you're trying to insinuate with 27 or?
Certainly, we can't guess at where the market will be a month from now, let alone, you know, 2 years from now, but you absolutely have the ability if things just don't look good, there's high volatility, any number of reasons, there's plenty of flexibility to move things around. And if that's skip a year and, you know, the project's just not needed because construction on the elementary school taking longer, et cetera, you'll have the flexibility to move those things around and still manage the tax rate.
And with the propositions, do we have to state with these laws that are coming out with for these propositions, do we have to state when are we gonna do them, or do we have to like be specific on what's gonna happen first, second, third, or?
No, we don't have to prioritize. Really, it's just stating however we need to break out the projects for the propositions, which will be done as generally as possible. And that'll be your bond attorneys that have the, you know, ultimate opinion on that. It's going to be the dollar amounts associated with those overall projects, athletic facilities, you know, whatever the other buckets, as it were, may be.
It would really be geared. The reason why you want to have a good timeline is for your public. You want them to go for a bond, you tell them, you're doing this project, this is the one we're doing first, second, third, you build it up based on our needs. And so people see progress. So if we ever want them to vote for a bond later, let's make sure that we do all our bond projects, let's do them timely, and let's do them like you said.
Yeah, and that's, we did very good this past bond in putting everything into line with what we said we're gonna do, and that's why I'm kind of not eerie, I guess, because it's just one of those where, the market doesn't put us in line with a certain thing that can get done at that time. And I just want to be transparent with the community that may happen, where we have, we're gonna put this on hold because the market's not right for us right now, and we're gonna make sure we're gonna get it done, but we just want to make sure the market's right for our school district. So that way we're not losing anything out on this.
It's market, it's actually the financial market, it's the construction market, it's our growth that we see on our property values, it's growth that we see in our district. There's gonna be a lot of factors that we're gonna have to really spell this out. Like, once we get it passed, how are we gonna get this timeline out? So we like to do that before, trying to get a good picture of it. And from there, work our way to like, okay, when can we go to market and how much can we get in these years, based on our projects, based on the market? Because the example, the last time we went out for bond, we were going to the market thinking we were only gonna do 50 million. And the market was good and we sold all the bonds. That's why we were able to, you know what, let's knock all our projects out. And that the market actually pushed that faster than actually construction. So there's a lot of variables that will happen to us. That being said, our neighbors who went out previously and had failed bonds, they went back and rebought their models. In the past, I don't know if y'all remember, especially the last bond, we went out and said, hey, we're not raising your taxes, please vote for our bond, but it was hard to explain because people were going in to vote for our bond election. And then in the election ballot, it's actually saying, hey, this is, we're gonna raise your taxes. And then all the verbiage that we have to put on all our orders and all our notices always say, we're raising taxes, even though we're keeping the tax rate the same. We know that ourselves based on just doing the tax rate. So a strategy to use is, instead of having to try to convince them that we're not raising taxes, is that we're gonna raise 1 penny. So in front of you, I gave you a chart. I'm gonna share this with the growth and planning. I'm sharing this with y'all just so you can kind of get an idea of what's gonna be shared with growth and planning. I'm sharing with growth and planning this, plus all the projects and kind of pictures. But looking at this at our tax rate history, over the last 5 years, a lot of it was compression from the state, but we've dropped our tax rate by 13 cents. This last year, even on the INS side, we dropped it a penny because of the capacity that we have in our values. And so this is something that we really want to hone in on to our taxpayers, is that over the last 5 years, as stewards of the district, we've actually dropped the tax rate over 13 cents. And then even on there, I'm going to have a chart that we'll be able to share that based on a penny tax rate on your value of your home, this is how much you're going to pay annually. So I think that's important so that they see for every 100 value, your 1 cent's gonna cost you this much. And as our values might grow before, because we don't know what that's gonna be, if we have value growth like we've had. It might not even be a penny, I don't know, that's something that's also, that's on the books that we have to continue to watch, it's like. Because our value growth has grown so much, we can only raise our tax based on what we have out there in our debt payment, our debt, so. There's a lot of factors there. I also have the projects on there for you that we're gonna be sharing with the growth and planning. Many of these projects, there's some new construction, obviously, you can see there that we have on there the 2 new elementaries. We just think that we might as well put 2 based on, if you go down 35 and you go this side of 35, we got 1.5 elementary over there, and that's where most of our growth is. And so on there, we have a lot of renovations. We got some elementary schools that need to be touched up. We got a high school that's growing that we need to add on, and that was Legacy. We kind of knew that. It's coming faster than you thought. I have on there, I know Francis was talking about, we're talking about community center and having places for public, kind of like that community center, professional development, central office place that we could do something here nicer. That's in there. And the biggest on here is probably the safety upgrades. We're about to get legislators coming out. I don't know how much funds they're gonna give us, but we have about 25 million, 23 million, or whatever, I can't remember what it is in there to go in there and really ramp up our safety. And then on there has some buses. And so we'll be sharing this with the government planning and continue to work. We're working with an architect on all these projects so that we can get real world pricing so that we're not undervaluing in 5 years from now. You can see elementary, I have on there $47 million. It's unbelievable, but that's what it's costing us right now to build one, and soft costs all in. So we'll be working with the growth planning, going through this process, hopefully to bring a recommendation to the facility subcommittee, which I'm sharing now that I'll probably need to have one if we're gonna do this in January at some point. And then January 17th, our next board meeting. We also have a brown bag, and we're gonna be working with bond council, working with architects, working with growth and planning. So there's a lot of things that are gonna have to happen in a short period of time to get to this point that the board is based on the recommendations that come from growth and planning. Feel like we need to move forward. Questions for us? I know it's a high level right now, but we're gonna get more as we go through it, as we start to finalize a lot of these things.
I think just making sure that we communicate this very clearly to the community is very apparent. Because if they see, oh, like you said, 1 penny, or they see we're raising taxes when we've been decreasing, like you just telling them decreasing 13 cents over the 5 years is gonna like, oh, okay, well, now we need, and then basically going, we need to upgrade our facilities.
Yeah.
And we need your help. And when we do that, and being transparent, saying, we look at our facilities, we're outgrowing them real quickly. They won't hesitate to not vote for the bond.
And so,
It's important that we communicate the growth to our community. And I know they see it, but
Yeah.
they don't
Well,
know
that's like
specifically
yeah.
how that affects the district. It's important. You know,
And-
we do a social media campaign around our growth and our needs, right?
and it's also important that we communicate that taxes go up because of values,
Absolutely.
okay?
That's the hard
Tax
thing.
rates stay the same or have even dropped in some cases, you know. Of course, tax rates are given out by the hospital district, by college district, right, you know. But it's the values of our properties that, you know, that are going up regardless, you know. And that's what causes taxes to be a bigger number, you know, and it's important, without getting into it too much, just explain to them value versus tax rate, you know.
And what the factor that you're bringing that up is like timing wise. The homestead just increased to 40,000, so this is a good time, like people are starting to see a relief in their tax payments this year compared to last year. So if you had the homestead in place, you actually lost, instead of 25, it's 40,000.
Yeah.
And anybody over 65 that hold that, it shouldn't affect you. That's a good piece that we.
And I'd also like to make an observation about this whole bond situation, that we as a board, that it behooves us and it's our responsibility to make sure that we vote accordingly, so the largest number of voters can participate in this vote. When we go out, when we ask them to approve a bond, that we need to make the decision as a board with regards to who we hold joint elections with, that include as many taxpayers and as many voters as possible, instead of limiting that number to the smallest number, available. So I think that that's a very, very important part of this, and I know that doesn't have to do with y'all, that has to do with us, but I just wanna verbalize that, make sure I make that point to, public board members.
The other thing that's coming up pretty soon is that the legislation is looking into making sure that we have to hit a certain amount of percentage of our voters that are registered in our district. If it comes to fruition of that law, I mean, we're gonna have to make sure that we open it up to wherever they can vote, they can vote.
That's one of the reasons we're looking at May. We don't know what the legislation is gonna do, and if they're gonna require a supermajority in the future or not. So there's a lot of unknowns beyond May, and that's one of the drivers. I would tell you, looking at the history of our bonds, our first bond was in 1999. I think there've been 6 or 7 since then. All have been approved the first time you've taken it out to voters, because we're doing the things that you guys are suggesting, that we have a really great relationship. We set our own artificial ceiling at 44 cents. We don't go all the way to 50. And we've been very understanding of the need to be able to deliver what we say we're going to deliver, bond after bond after bond after bond. And so we're going to keep that up. I will say this on this $250 million potential bond that we're going forward with. The main driver is student building safety enhancements, the integration of safety technology, the integration of one touch lockdown, the opportunity to communicate instantly. There's a lot of more technology that's coming out, and we think by the time we get there, that's going to be our main driver. I think our second driver, and we're going to take this to growth and planning, which is a recommending committee to the board, but at the end of the day, it's completely up to the board what direction we go and when we sell certain bonds or we don't sell them at certain times. But I think what we do is we're able to put that in a package to understand that we do have a need for an elementary, not our 12th elementary per se, but an elementary on the east side of our district to where the growth is at. Brandon just said. Then we got to come back into this side and come up with a plan, what we're going to do with our 3 elementaries who are losing enrollment in neighborhoods that are more aged and they're changing somewhat, and people are staying in their homes longer. But we can get creative in that side too. But I think those, to me, those are the 2 main drivers, and the third one, and I hope this is where the growth and planning comes out, is going to be the expansion of legacy. When you have that many, what we call floating teachers, they don't have a classroom of their own, so they just move around all day long. It does take away from the planning and preparation and what teachers can deliver instruction effectively and efficiently. So, yeah, we're gonna, all the things you guys are saying, we're gonna do. We've been doing those for a while, and I think this is gonna be no different. We just have to be honest. Take it out to the voters. There's gonna be some things we don't know moving forward, but the fact that we have this commitment, we met every target that we said we were going to address in every one of the bonds that we've done in the past. And I don't think this district would ever move away from that.
I want to piggyback on that and make sure that this is out there for the public record, that in the past bonds that we do hold joint elections with Bexar County. And at that point, we always invite our entire community through that vote to make their voices heard. And you're right, this community is amazing. They are always supportive of our district. I hear it from, the neighborhoods, whatever our kids need, we want to do. I just want to point out that we only do that for our bond elections. When we are having elections for trustees, then we switch and go have joint elections with City of Lytle, and our numbers of voters drop from the thousands to the hundreds. So I think in this May, that's going to be a bit of an issue and a quandary, because we're having trustee elections, which typically get held with Lytle, and a bond, which typically gets held with Bexar County. So again, my very strong urging is that we go with Bexar County, so that the maximum amount of voters will be able to participate and be heard and know what's happening and know that their taxes are going to go up. And, instead of less than 1,000 people voting for this bond, if we go with Bexar County, it'll be thousands. So I just want to make sure that's out there for public record. Thank you.
Mrs. Gross.
Thank you.
Mark, appreciate it.
You'll
Thank
have-
you all.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Okay, Superintendent Student Advisory Council overview.
Yes, sir. For about 8 years now, we've had a superintendent student advisory council in our district. And this is our attempt to really elevate student voice in Southwest ISD over the years. We talked a lot about what a student's experience is on school. And when I say student, I'm only talking our 3 high schools. So there is representation from 9th, 10th, 11th, and 12th grade from Cass, Legacy, and from Southwest, where they come together once a month. We actually use them as child nutrition guinea pigs too. So if we have new menu items coming out, they're the first group to get it, and they do a survey for our cafeteria staff. So if they have input, if the item makes it or not. And then we give the students some opportunity to have some kind of free open conversations about their experiences, about safety issues, about rigor in academics, pathways when you choose post-high school opportunities. And so what we try to do this here recently, we got Mr. Barsones really involved with the group. He's done a great job in talking to the students. We want to bring those students in front of the board, not today in the work session, but potentially at one of our regular meetings coming up in the next month or two, so that you can hear some of the things that we hear them talk about. Mr. Barsones is going to bring an item these students came up with, unsolicited, on their own, about what they're looking for us to really kind of lean into and help them with. And so I'll turn it over to
Well, you took the words out of my mouth first, so that was my intro.
everyone here, Judy.
So, Mr. Daniel Barsones with more on this topic.
Good afternoon, everybody. So like Dr. Person was saying, the Superintendent Student Advisory Council, we're a group of high school students from Cass, from Southwest, from Legacy. We get together and really it's just having them, give them the opportunity to hear their voice. And my job is to make sure that their voice is heard. So that's kind of what I do, and I try to facilitate that. One of the conversations. Let me see. Oh, I see, that's what I see. So one of the things that we had talked about, I said you see the picture there, the students love coming because they get to try out new menu items. So we have child nutrition will come in, and one of the things they'll do is they'll try out different menu items that we want to put on and serve. So they love that. They love talking. These students really great, and one of the things is when we gave them a chance to hear their opinion, they just naturally turned into they want to start solving problems, right? And the problem with that is some of those problems are kind of beyond that they want to address or beyond what they wanted to do. So we kind of refocused them, and one of the things that I challenged was like, well, what was one of the things that you could change the district? What's one of the things that you want to do? And resounding majority said that they liked the competition, but they felt there was too much competition. In other words, they always felt there was always Southwest versus Legacy in everything we did. So they wanted to come up with an idea that just some kind of event or just some project that would bring everybody in the district, that would bring them together. Okay. So we started talking about different things. One of the other things that I do is I work with a lot of the clubs with purchasing, with Mr. Chode and all that kind of stuff. And we always talk about that for a lot of the clubs that are doing their own funding, one of the biggest hurdles or obstacles they have is the opportunity just to get out there. So when we were talking with the students, we kind of brought that up, and they kind of came up with this idea of a night in Old Southwest. It's basically a fiesta event, right? And the whole thing was they wanted something to celebrate Southwest, the familial bonds. And they wanted something to bring the district together, and specifically they wanted something that wasn't a competition. So this is what we came up with. Superintendent Student presents a night in Old Southwest. So that's the name that they kind of chose and they agreed upon. We're looking at a date of April 14th, 23 of this year. And just so you know, so just about the event, it's gonna be a fundraising carnival. For all Southwest ISD affiliated clubs, organizations, departments. So we're looking at clubs at the high school, clubs at the middle school, clubs at the elementaries. We were gonna open up to organizations, you know, booster clubs, anybody that's Southwest ISD affiliated. And also we're looking at maybe some of the departments. You know, sometimes some of the departments are doing some of the fundraising for things, so we thought we'd give them the opportunity as well to come out. Basically, it will be a family-friendly kind of fiesta event with food, games, and entertainment. Right, and so again, the goal of this event was to connect Southwest as a community and celebrate Southwest. Any questions so far?
Are we gonna try and make this an official event?
Not right now, only because there is a lot of paperwork and fees involved with making it an official event.
Sure.
What we would like to do is we kind of like to grow it and kind of, with the kids, we called it a legacy project. And so the group that came up with it, the initial group, this is, it was a junior and some seniors. So they had been involved with the Student Advisory Council, for almost since their freshman sophomore year. So they saw this as something that each year we want to add some kind of project that's either sustainable, that we can do as a legacy project, or something that we can do that would affect all the district as well. So we had talked about the location, right? So at first we thought about, since it would be a fiesta event, we wanted to do kind of in the evening. We looked at the softball field parking lot. I just found out this morning, I called Coach Hernandez. There is a game. It's the senior softball game. So this location is gonna be not available for us, but we are looking for. Yeah, so we're looking for different available or different locations that would be accessible. We want to find something that's kind of more accessible, more central to the district. We're gonna look and reach out to maybe like Traders Village. Or try to see some other kind of venue that can fit all these the people there. The next thing, just kind of an in-depth look, right? So we wanted people there, so we wanted this to be an activity. Again, where each club would have the opportunity to host a different type of booth, whether it's like a gaming booth or like think of like any carnival. Face painting, that kind of stuff. One of the things we already had committed, talked to the soccer teams. I don't know if you've been to the football games, the soccer team, they do the great street tacos, the girls do the chicken on a stick, the fried chicken on a stick. They've already committed, they're all excited about that. It was for them, it was those were great fundraisers. They were able to do some traveling with that. We're looking to have some great activities there. We're also looking at trying to sponsor, get a live band and make this as much as a real kind of fiesta event to draw people in. Of course, we would reach out to fine arts and elementaries and schools and get more student performances in there as well. The other thing too is the ticketing currency. So what we were kind of doing is talking to Dan Chode and purchasing. One of the things they're doing is an online kind of purchasing. We want to start pushing that out. So what we're thinking of doing is selling like coupon books, and that would be the currency for that. Basically, which would make them get used to that, testing out our system that we have here, purchasing as well, and it's be kind of be easier and safer to have that's less cash as possible with everybody. So basically, you would go into the event, you can either buy online freehand or day of, buy a book of tickets. You can go and spend how much money, and then at the end of the night or the next day, we have all the clubs turn their tickets, and then basically we would turn around and transfer cash into their account, or money into their accounts, and do it that way.
Danny,
Yes, ma'am.
is that gonna be the only way, or you're gonna still have cash?
We're trying to do as less cash as possible. Talking to Dan, we want to try to go away from cash as much as possible. It's something we can talk about. We're still in the planning phases, but we really want to, like I said, kind of test out what we can do with what we have. With the equipment that-
I think we might have community members that are not gonna be able to do the
pre-buy, so maybe if we could set up
Cash. booth.
just like a place where they can buy the
Yeah,
tickets
no,
with
yeah,
cash
that's
and
what-
not
we're
at
gonna
each
set up-
booth, but somewhere where they can buy a, book a ticket.
Yeah, and on a lot of this too, I'm really relying on, purchasing's expertise on this too, and that would be the best, so I'm kind of going with that.
Is this gonna include rides?
As of right now, if we're doing it on our property, probably not, but if we reach out and like we're able to do it at Traders Village,
Rides.
then Traders Village.
Horses.
Don't bring the older kids.
I know when you're somebody bought a homemade train set.
I don't know how you would do it, but like, aren't there like, places that you can like rent these, just a few, or 4 or 5 little children rides?
There
not
are,
the crazy.
but the problem with that is a lot of these folks don't have the money right now to choose.
No, but for us,
If
so
we
that
could-
we can kind of hype the event, you know? what I'm
We
saying?
could, I mean, that's something we can look into.
We should talk about it.
Yeah.
What does the Student Advisory Council plan to do with their fundraising funds? What is the purpose?
So the purpose of that, a couple of things is, one, we always do like we get our own shirts. We've been really dependent on Dr. Versa's funding. He'll give us some money so we can buy like our shirts and we'll do like a luncheon at the end of the year kind of stuff. But what we really want to do is we want to raise that money and the students wanted to go back and do a specific project on their campus. So they would raise money and then we would kind of split it and they would kind of look for projects that they could do. Like I said, these guys had, like, they're really good about like, hey, they didn't like this, or they thought this was unfair, and they want to solve it. And that's like, they want to do something, that's great, guys, but we can't just, go out there and do it. We have to follow procedures and things like that too. So I want to kind of give them an avenue where they can actually not only voice their opinion, but actually put that voice into action. So that's what we're looking at with that.
I'd be interested in knowing, at the beginning of your presentation, you mentioned that they had all these ideas that were beyond their ability to impact, but I would be interested if you, want to write those down or
Yeah,
whatever.
we can
bring them
talk
to
about
us
that.
so we can hear from them, right?
Yeah, we'll talk about, I have a.
Not today, another
Yeah.
day is fine.
And so, basically, let me move on here. And so this was kind of some of the merchandise, the kids, okay, so we only meet once a month, so it's very hard to like work on these things with them. So a lot of times what I do is I'll solicit
order
their
now?
input, they give me ideas, and then I'll work on some like models, things like that. And then I'll come back and show them, and then I'll give them like, hey, this is what we came up with, and they're like, I like this, I like that, I like this, or they're like, what if we did this and that? So this one right here, they couldn't decide on which t-shirt design. So they're like, why can't we just do 2 t-shirts? And I'm like, you know what? Problem solved. So yeah, so that's what kind of we're looking at. The t-shirts, we're gonna try to do resell. And then the Fiesta medals, those would have to be sold day of, only because it takes so long to order. So.
Those are really cute.
Yeah, so we'll have that, and then, so basically, right now, we're still in the planning stages. We made the salinity request, but we'll probably have to change some of those. The next thing we do, like I said, we're working really closely. Right now, we're soliciting seed funding from the Education Foundation. We just have to get kind of a number to give them. So that's kind of what we're working on right now, but they've agreed to give us some monies. And then we're also working with the purchasing department just on the whole procedures. Just because Mr. Cho works very closely with bookkeepers, and bookkeepers are actually the ones that are kind of drive the fundraising stuff on their campuses. So like all the people have to report to them. So that's kind of our in on the campuses as well. And then, of course, we're going to meet with district leadership team and precisely police department. And the leadership team is basically because, like I said, we want to reach out to the principals and everybody in the departments. If they want to do any fundraising, we expect them to give them that opportunity there. And then kind of our next steps, we meet again on the 25th of January, and then hopefully next time we can come back to see you guys have an update on the actual event. Back to
Just let me know.
Southwest, and I know they wanted to talk about school safety as well. So we can-
Thank you.
Any other questions?
I got questions. being that, to try to centralize it, thinking about Traders Village. The other thing is, you gotta get elementaries involved too, or is this something that's gonna be like a big community event? So,
The
Is-
intent is to be a big community event.
and are we gonna be showcasing, I know fine arts and stuff like that, it's awesome. But I would also like to think about showcasing, our cars, our solar cars, our, what is EA Sports, esports. Showcasing the whole aspect of what Southwest has to offer. I think that if we just go in there and market this as what we can offer, this will put an end to our charter schools thing. And I think,
Definitely help.
and it will help, like, just like letting people know that we are community, we are family. We try to showcase our family. And I think that's just very imperative to get that word out. And this is the biggest opportunity for us to showcase as one of the last years you're gonna be here. I think it would be awesome to showcase everything that's come to fruition under the tutelage of Dr. Reed.
Well said.
No, definitely. Take some advice. Any other questions?
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, awesome. Penguin Project. Do we have a penguin in the room?
A little bit over a year. A little bit over a year, we had some of our board members who joined us.
So, yes.
And so today we do have as some of the little special items, but I do want to recognize a team that has been leading this amazing project here in Southwest, which is we do have Dr. Aubrey Hogan. We also have Mr. Richard Flores, and then also Mr. Dickerson. And I want to recognize them for their passion, their work. They have been really putting in more than just your regular workday. They've been doing weekends, holidays, texting, and just always just coming up with their ideas and their true passion and their heart that they're pouring into this work. And so across that, we also are able to see different departments. So you get to see the penguin here, the idea of the penguin that we saw across the canop, but we also had career and technology. So we do want to thank also our teachers who were able to create that. And so just, I wanted to just acknowledge them for just not only just taking a project, but also putting in their heart into it. And you'll see a little bit of what they've created for you as well as we are going to launch this amazing project here in Southwest. So, Mr. Flores.
Happy New Year, everyone.
Happy New Year.
So I just wanted to kind of give you an update of where we've been so far. First of all, Dr. Hogan, myself, and Mr. Dickerson, we form what we call the table team. This is we're putting the nuts and bolts behind everything that needs to happen. A second hat that Carl wears is that he is the leader of the production team. And so he has several folks that are working with him from the campuses, but also from CNI as well, that are helping to actually execute the artistic vision of the project as well. So we had a meeting back on September 8th, a parent meeting at McAuliffe High School McAuliffe Middle School to make sure that parents understood what the project was all about, and so forth, to introduce it to the community. We have a student group of approximately 36 students, approximately. It has fluctuated a little bit here and there based on commitment and so forth. And we have students all the way from second grade up to 12th grade. And they're regularly participating in rehearsals, and the group is made up approximately about half and half, about 18 talent students and 18 mentor students as well. And they're working on what the production of Annie Jr. And so that production team is working really hard with Carl, and we're under the gun now because the performances are right around the corner at the end of this month. And so we're excited, but we're also a little, as with everything, you want to make sure that everything goes well. And as I said before, our table team is comprised of the three of us. Rehearsals were occurring at Resnick Middle School all through the fall, just because the high schools are so busy during that fall time, especially in the auditorium. And so we did the initial rehearsals and so forth at Resnick. Today, we are starting the first rehearsals over at Southwest High School in the auditorium. And so we're really excited about that. As you can see on the schedule that we ramped up the commitment level. So we started with 1 day a week in September, then we went to 2 days in October, and then by November and December, we were doing 3 days a week, Monday through Thursdays. And like I said, we will be not only moving over to Southwest High School, but we're also going to be rehearsing 4 days a week now through the month of January in preparation for the performance.
At what time, sir?
And I'll get to that. They'll be at 7 p.m. and I'll show you the dates and everything in the PowerPoint. So the rehearsal progress has been very, very good. We've had a visit, a couple of visits, face to face, but also on Zoom from Dr. Morgan, who's come out, and the last time he was he kind of zoomed in December. He was real pleased with our progress, and he's kind of leaving us alone now, at us being the first time at it. He wanted to have a lot of involvement, and that's great. But I think he's seen that we've made some good progress, so we're excited about where we are at this point. A lot of great, this is not, yes, it's about the production, but it's not about pulling off the most awesome, Broadway production of all time. This is more about the relationships that are being built between the students. And this has been the focus, and it's been the payoff already so far. We've had very, very, very few issues. Everything has been really, really positive. The kids working well together. Costuming and design and set design are ongoing. We're bringing in some consultants for the set design and so forth, sound, lighting, all that sort of thing. That they'll be coming on board now in January as we start wrapping up for the performances. As you see these penguin statues, I want to credit the CTE department and actually Mr. Luna over at Southwest High School. They created from this template that Carl started, created these 2-piece little wooden statues of penguins. And then our legacy art students and art teacher painted them. And so they have created about 30 of those statues, and they're going to be going out to our campuses and departments, but they're going to be a blank slate, right? They're going to be just the wood frame, and then each school will have an opportunity to design theirs, paint theirs, make it their own, to really celebrate the project. And so we're really excited about that. And then our public relations team has been doing a great job of creating video. I'm sure you've seen that every week in December when Jenny puts out those notices, you'll see there was a story about the students that were, cutting all the wood and so forth for the penguins and so forth. So as we're moving, we're ramping up the awareness of the project as well, and the performances. And in addition to that, they're reaching out to potential future sponsors. So right now we're funding them through the district, right? But eventually what we'd like to do is bring some potential funders. We're inviting them to this first set of performances. And then as they get more interested and see what a cool thing this is, then perhaps later on down the road, they would like to invest in it. And so it starts funding itself over time. All right, so the calendar, as I said, this is how things have been going. I already told you about what it was in the fall. This month, we are working Monday through Thursdays at Southwest High School. Just so that you know, they start right after school, 4:45, and go to about 6:30 in the evening. We do provide through our food service department, we do provide some snacks and drinks for them, because we do take some breaks in between there for the students. On January 18th, and I put this in parentheses up there, this is closed to the public, but what we are doing is a dress rehearsal, and we're going to have that for some of our special ed students and also for some of our special ed partners that are going to come in and visit. This is going to give us a great opportunity to get the kinks out, before the public performances, figure out, hey, what are things that we missed or we need to work on, that sort of thing. But it also gives the students a good idea of what does the performance feel like, right? And they're going to be in a comfortable setting with the audience that we have on that night. However, the actual public performances that are going to be happening on Friday, January 27th. That's a Friday at 7 p.m. at Southwest High School in the auditorium. And then the following night on Saturday night, also at 7 p.m. at Southwest High School. All right, so those, and I meant to put that on the slide, but the tickets are already available. They're up on GoFan. And so people can start buying tickets at this time. We're going to get that information out to Jenny, and then she'll start pushing out the you know, the what do you call it, the QR code or whatever to look at that. And then you know, this is what it's all about, right? This is what the Penguin Project is all about, empowering our children with special needs through theater. And notice that the theater part is secondary, right? Okay. And I'm coming from the fine arts guy, right? And I love this. Our penguins may not be able to fly, but that does not prevent their spirits from soaring. So I think this is a really great motto. Just wanted to share with you some pictures of the things that are going on. The gentleman there in the purple what do you call them, scrubs, right, shirt is Dr. Morgan. All right, and then two people over to the left is Cran Dodds, who runs the one in Corsicana. And so they were here for the mentor camp to assist our students in learning how to interact with their fellow students. All right, so these were some of the activities that were going on. Like, for example, what if you had a blind student? How would you guide them through an obstacle course? So we made a makeshift obstacle course with cafeteria chairs and so forth. All this happened at Resnick. Here's learning some lines on the stage. Here's some interactions that were happening during the mentor camp. This one, let's see. This is a video. So this is them learning a song. Oh. I'll try that again. Roger, how do I get it to Oh, it's not plugged in. I think it's So one of the famous songs from Annie, right? Tomorrow. So part of what we did is we have two kinds of tracks, right? So one of the tracks is with a vocal.
This was made available to primary and secondary, right?
Yes, ma'am.
But
We
we
have
mostly
students
have-
involved second through 12.
But they all look like younger children. Are they mostly just primary and secondary? I mean, middle school?
It's kind of a little bit of all.
Everything?
Yes,
Okay.
yeah, we have high school students involved there. We also have younger students from elementary, but also some middle school students too. Yeah, it's a pretty good cross section. Yeah. All right, and then I'll go to And then the gentleman here that you see at the front is the choreographer that that is a consultant that's been coming out so the students start learning dance steps and all that sort of thing. He's been a great asset to us. All right. And and then finally, this is a logo. We have a new one that has all the dates on there that will be going out very, very soon. All right.
Can I just say something real quick?
Yes, ma'am.
I just wanted to thank you because when, I think it was Flo and James and I had gone to that session at TASB.
Right.
And we saw this and we just got really excited about it, right? And then we talked to Dr. Verstiff about it and talked to Aubrey, all these people, right? Well, I just really, really appreciate the fact that all of y'all ran with it because it wasn't a little task, right? And so, I mean, it really means a lot to me that, we saw it. We saw Corsicana had done it and we thought we can do that too. But as board members, we can just say, can y'all do this, right? And we really can't. And it's not our place, right, to try to be in the nuts and bolts of it, but to see how far y'all have come with this thing, it's just really exciting from that visit we did to Corsicana and the work it takes and Mr. Dickerson for being willing to take a little sabbatical from Sky Harbor. I mean, it's just exciting that y'all have come this far with it and I really, really appreciate it.
Yeah, it's amazing work.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. All right.
Okay,
Very exciting.
Yeah.
thank you. Any other questions, any other input?
Can I,
No.
can I also elaborate, Dr. Hogan, I asked her a couple of questions a while back. I just want to bring it maybe to a future brown bag. That she was thinking about our bringing back Special Olympics to our district. Maybe with the unified sports. That was something that she elaborated on to me. I was like, wow, that's taking the next step from theater to going into where you have a person with disabilities and a mentor to do the same sport and compete together and win together. And that's awesome. It was like, so that way the unified not just affects theatricals, but you also affect athletics and bring up the aspect. So I think at future brown bag, we can try to look into that kind of aspects for those projects.
Noted. Any other? Okay, we don't have a closed session for ourselves, but I do see Tasby here. Let's take a 5-minute break. Okay, and then we'll get going.
It has to be a closed session.
It is close, it's just not.
That will be your
personal.
close.
No, that's what I'm saying, but let's take a 5-minute break. And then we'll go into closed session with Tasby.
Okay.
Okay.
And you're gonna close.
Yes.
Gotcha.
You're gonna close it in 5 minutes. Are you gonna close it?
Well, we're not we're not in closed session right now.
Right. So you're gonna
Okay.
take a break and then call. it.
Then call the closed session with Tasby.
All right.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, everybody has to-
Yeah, that's what I'm trying to get to. Those of you in the audience that would like to leave at this time, you're more than welcome to do so, except for Roger.
They have-
Gonna call out the number, sir? To take us to close?
Okay, guys.
We're taking a little recess so we can go bathroom and then
Yeah.
we're gonna come to closed session. In other words, okay, we're back from the little recess. And pursuant, and it's permitted by sections 551.001 through 551.146 of the Texas Government Code to include discussion on applications for position of superintendent. We will now go into closed session at 1:06. back into open session at 1:52. Does anybody have one more thing?
I do, just to announce to the board, a week from tomorrow, we do have, one of our 4 early out days where we do PD. I know there's conversation requests, to maybe, do away with these, which we've had in senior staff. We're not gonna put them on the calendar next year because we don't think there's a return on that investment. And we know it creates a burden on our families. And, so I went back to the principal to have a conversation and everyone has planned out this year. So I'd like to ask the board, let's finish these, we only have one more after next week. And then, next year on the calendar, we do not expect to put any early outs for professional development, moving forward. And so, that happens on the 11th of January, and then there's another one, I think, in March.
Okay,
Lloyd, was that originally supposed to be, I got an earful, I guess the last time we had this. Originally, that was supposed to be that the teachers do the campuses, right?
Yeah.
But then we kind of had them do professional development instead, so they didn't actually get the time for what it was intended, or
So,
it like evolved into something different.
during the pandemic, we used it more as a work day, kind of a reprieve. So everyone had to like turn 180 degrees on the dime. And so we use those days to give them the time to do their planning, getting the grades, to contact those students that aren't coming on Zoom.
Yeah.
And since we've come back, it's kind of morphed into more of a PD environment. And I saw there's some confusion around it. So I think our conversation this morning is, it had a time and a place, and we've kind of used it for that, and I think it was a really great thing for educators. But we think moving forward, those pathways would probably be better used just doing full day PDs when we have those opportunities.
So there, we are gonna do the days as full day PDs eventually? Is what you're saying?
On the days that we already have on the calendar,
Oh, okay,
but no more half days.
right.
Next year's calendar.
Okay.
Now, we haven't taken that to DLT. The DLT is another recommended committee to the board. So we're gonna take it to the DLT. We're gonna see what their feedback is. And so when we bring that recommendation, when we bring the calendar to the board, we'll include the recommendation.
So I know part of what supposedly they were, everybody was supposed to be working on was drilling down on, looking at their data and figuring out what students were where and planning and like all that stuff, right? So I've been, we go visit campuses in subcommittee, and I know some principals are very intentional and they create space for their teams, the grade level teams to meet to do that work during the school day. But I don't think that that's happening everywhere. Do you know? I mean, is it something that we're doing as a district or not? And in the campuses that it's not happening, when do those teachers get to do all that work?
It's difficult in the picture perfect world. We would build it into the schedule of every
Yeah.
employee. But then we would probably have to hire 24, 25 more staff members, which already had a $9 million deficit. Beginning of this year. So they try to build in PLC time.
Yeah.
So that there's a common conference period, and then those teachers have an opportunity to voluntarily congregate and do like lesson planning and what are we trying to teach for the next section coming up. But not everyone is able to do it that way, because sometimes the master schedule doesn't work out. I know all the way from elementary through middle schools that there are PLC meetings at least once a week that are happening that are like common.
Like a second grade and
Yeah.
second grade math or
Yeah.
something like
So
that.
elementary, you do like a team, a grade level team, then
Oh,
you
right.
do like a
Yes.
curriculum content.
Correct.
Team as well. But
But my concern being that I don't know that well, but my concern being that it's happening in some schools and not in others, and the equity issue, the repercussions of not doing it in some, I'm not clear, I guess, and we can, figure that out, right, and ask those questions.
We can take it back. So, there's a couple.
yeah,
Well, they don't run the same at all, but.
it sounds like we need to make this a brown bag
Yeah.
item, so
Yes.
you'll get with
Give
Delila.
it a little,
Yeah.
open up a presentation and kind of give an idea, but I know they may not be identical to each other, but everyone's
that's okay.
required to PLC.
No, yeah,
But what does that look like?
those
Yes.
conversations are actually happening.
And what's gonna happen next year?
Right, right,
We'll bring that back, February, March, bring back.
okay.
Okay. Anything else? Okay. Meeting adjourned, 1:58.